started thinking about how the role of landscape itself needs to ask questions right now. It needs to be more than a beautiful picture to look at. It has to propose. It has to ask the viewer. It has to make the viewer engage in a discussion, a dialogue. Hi, my name is Procko, and this video goes out to Professor Efremov, Professor Brodus Garcia, and Professor Zalewski. So I'd like to start by thanking all three of you guys for accepting to work as my advisors, my counsel, and work with me on my directed project in the art education program. The reason why I'm making a video is because I had the recent opportunity to put on a show at the Farmington Public Library. I'm a teacher in Farmington. I've worked with the library previously on different occasions, and recently on a sort of large project. And Jay Johnson, the director at the library, asked me specifically if I'd like to have a show there. And I told him about my master's program and how my final show for this needed to line up with some of the work that I've been doing. And he thought it would be a great idea. I thought it would be a great idea. However, the time slot that was offered to me was September. So that meant that I had to get a lot of things rolling, a lot of things moving quickly, and I wouldn't necessarily be able to meet with the three of you before this thing sort of kind of went together and got put up. So I'm doing a video up front so you guys are aware of exactly what I'm doing, although I think most of you have a pretty good idea of the work that I've been making recently and at my time at CCSU these last few years. And I've been on the same sort of trajectory, the same path. So I think it's consistent, I think it's strong work, and I think doing a video to sort of explain my ideas a little clearer to all of you going into this show would work as a proposal. Now also I plan to meet with you guys at the very beginning of the semester. The reception for the show will be at the end of September, so there's still a month there where I can sort of adjust, make improvements, change things, so on and so forth with that. So I think there's time there. I also have a faculty show that will be, it's usually in, I believe, December, which I can make sort of reapproach some of my work, reapproach some designs after chatting with you guys. So I know there was some concern about doing a show so early in the semester would sort of inhibit the changing in the design process and sort of the advice and ideas I might get from you three working that wouldn't sort of show up in my show. But I think that I can readjust things for the faculty show we put on, which could show growth too. I'm also excited to take some leaps into some other media that I'm going to talk about. So I think that also my time for the rest of the semester will not be a disappearing act. I think I have some really nice ideas that I want to keep pursuing, and that this show in September would be a great launch into the continuation of what I'm doing. So my art career starts really young. I guess I've always made art, always made things, always created things, and always kind of knew maybe that was the only route that I would take. So I did art in high school. I did okay art in high school. And then I went to University of Hartford Art School for my bachelor's in fine arts. Majored in sculpture and had a minor in art history. Did some really neat stuff there. Mostly what I got into, mostly what I was interested while I was there was doing performance work, doing installation based work, and doing very idea-centric artwork. So work that concerned the idea more than the process or the means and the material. It was much more about getting across what I needed to get across. If I'm not continually practicing and making work, then I'm sort of failing as an artist. So to be a good art teacher, I think that simultaneously your artwork has to reflect you and your teaching practice. It's a very difficult, I think, line to walk. So how do I do that? How do I play with those things? Well, first I have to be sort of very interested in what the students are interested in, or we have to find some sort of common ground. And I think this the industry changed, so too the class sort of mirrored that and changed, and everything became much more about digital means, digital processes, and I began to sort of get really invested in digital work, digital processes. So that was kind of really, I guess, somewhat of a turning point. I started playing around with electronics, small processors, small ways of creating things using different computer languages and codes became available, became affordable. The sort of maker world started to explode, and I got sort of very interested in all of that stuff. As it created sort of it expanded the way that the artist could manipulate interaction with its viewers. So it was very important for me. Previously, I've been very invested in being a part of my art and creating performances that had a sense of interaction or about the instance with the viewer and about the instant with the viewer. So that transition to technology, which could sort of play that role for me, was kind of liberating and very interesting to me. Being older, I'd sort of lost the desire to put myself in my artwork. I no longer felt this sort of narcissistic need to be in my work, and in some ways it was kind of nice to let go of that. So, but I still like that idea of interaction or change or something like that. So I started trying to inject that into my work. How can things be interactive? And so that's something that I began playing around with, and I think is very interesting and very available to most artists these days. So, and again, mirrors my class and what my classes are doing, which is very when I began approaching this idea of landscape, it sort of came about by a few drawings that I did initially, and these drawings were based off of, they were actual physical pencil drawings on sort of gessoed board that represented these digital landscapes that I'd created. And I was looking at things like the wireframe of the work, looking at how these digital landscapes were sort of constructed and how we thought about them. Very, very much thinking about things like scale, thinking about this sort of three-dimensional aspect of these landscapes, and trying to draw these digital outputs. So I was drawing the wireframes, I was drawing drop shadows, right, which is like a digital painting trick. It's like a Photoshop or web design trick where you add a sort of faux shadow underneath a panel or a box to make it look like it's lifting off the screen. So these drawings had these hand-drawn representations of drop shadows, which are sort of silly. It's a sort of 2D trick. So playing around with these ideas, I was at the same time I was drawing these landscapes I had created, and my process is one where I'm actually using software to create these landscapes. I'm using software to model, to sculpt, to play around with valleys and peaks. I'm using algorithms to change heights of mountains, the way the iterations play around with maybe the gravel, the land erosion, the water erosion, wind. I can adjust numbers to adjust the reaction of these erosion effects on these landscapes that I've sort of hand-drawn and developed three-dimensionally with basic building geometry, polygons, things like that, that add up to these very detailed sort of landscapes. So from there, clearly I gravitated towards sculpture. I began sculpting ways of presentation for these little landscapes I had been creating, these little plastic pieces that you could sort of hold, or even smaller ones that you could fit in the palm of your hand. I started creating ways to display them. I created these sort of towering pieces that represented skylines, but also maybe mountain heights, and lifted things off the ground for the viewer to sort of scope, look around. One piece in particular used a sensor on actual natural rock that would change the brightness and dimness of an LED resting above the mountainscape. So playing around with this idea of this unnatural sunset, sunrise, and this idea of petting this real rock or touching this real rock to sort of force these fake landscapes into action, and you're sort of, manipulating this one object but looking past it to these other objects that maybe we're more comfortable with now, or maybe they're presented to us in such a way that we have control over. From different materials, from different techniques, I'm exploring things, but I'm continuing to make these sort of fake landscapes, which are sort of interesting. And then I'm continuing to explore how I'm presenting them and offering them to the viewer. So I go back to drawing the next semester, and then I'm playing around with printmaking. So how does my stuff apply to printmaking? Well, of course it applies to printmaking because I'm doing landscapes, and that's easy. You just make landscapes now. But what I tried to do was push the tech part. How do I push my copper plates? And so I started using machines, a vinyl cutter. Instead of having a blade in the vinyl cutter, I put a Sharpie, and the Sharpie would draw plot on the copper, the drawing I wanted to see printed. And so I'm doing this stuff digitally, and then this machine is manipulating it onto the copper, and then I'm putting this copper in this acid bath, and then I'm running prints. I'm running prints of this sort of digital workflow. I'm using a digital workflow mixed with a traditional means to sort of apply it to these landscape prints. So I created this game, and this game was designed, the landscape was designed by me. I created it, I sliced it up into these pieces. It became this tile laying game where you were sort of putting pieces together with a partner, with an opponent, to construct this landscape. And the end result would be that you would together make this almost like a puzzle or something. And there's ways to win and ways to lose, but there's ways to work at it together. But more importantly, throughout this process, this piece is being moved around, this sort of dance between opponents to sort of piece together this landscape is this part of it that forces the two opponents to talk to each other about landscape, to ask each other questions about landscape, to remind each other of stories and open up that dialogue. The point is to discuss while it plays out. The point is not for it to hang on the wall. The point is not for it to sit on a pedestal. The point is to lay it down on a kitchen table with a friend or family and begin this discussion and that discussion itself becomes this dance, and that discussion itself becomes the artwork. So my proposal for the show itself in September is an exploration of all these ideas. I've labeled the stuff on my website as explorations. I'm putting together my website in such a way that the games I've created, the things I've created are accessible. You can go on there, print off all the pieces I used to make my game. You will be able to go on my website, download those, print them off. You'll be able to go on my website and get the code for the LCD screens that revolve those questions. You'll be able to submit questions to my website for that game to populate the game itself with landscape questions. So I'm opening this up. It's a very sort of open source world. Content is everywhere. People are allowed to play with that content how they would like, and I think that's important, and I reflect that in my art. So the game, the documentary of me playing the game this summer with as many people as I can, will be a large part of the presentation at my show. All my drawings, all my sculptures will be there presented to people to interact with, to look at, to see, to begin questioning, to question their own relationship with those things. I would like to, over the summer, make one more larger floor game that people can play that produces interaction between viewers. I would like to entertain multiple different sort of two-dimensional forms, some of which people can manipulate, some of which may be interactive. I think that promoting this at the library is a wonderful opportunity for me as an artist in this community. My relationship with the students is good, and I think that sort of as the years go on, that my influence artistically will make a difference in this town, this community, this environment. So I think for me to show what I do here, I think is a special opportunity. I think it's important. It mirrors the work that I'm doing with the students at the library with the town map project that I've been working on. So I think it's a really smart idea. I really like the way this body of work is coming out, and I'm really looking forward to presenting it there. So I think that that's pretty much the gist of this project, of this process. I've done a lot of research in Professor Z's class. We researched so much. I think I have a better handle on where my artwork is coming from, where other landscape work is going simultaneously right now, the directions and the things that a landscape artist needs to sort of think about. I think that I've done that research, so I feel confident in my ability to represent this sort of artistic form. In Professor Efremoff's classes, I think that I've expanded my view of how I promote and present things through projections, through creating a game, through having that freedom to do things that don't look like gallery art sometimes, or don't wear the same clothes as gallery art. So I think that opportunity is sort of been influenced by sort of what he brings to the table and some of the discussions we've had. I think that Professor Rodas Garcia has helped me tie my sort of education and my educator status in with myself as a sort of an artist, and so not just an art teacher, but an artist and what that means in terms of my students and myself. I think that some of the shows that she's sort of made happen in the gallery has opened my eyes. I think that's really sort of been a good part of my education at CCSU. And so I think that this show in September is a good would be a good sort of holistically in presenting all these ideas and all this stuff. So I'm sort of very pleased with how these last few years have come together. And then moving forward, I would like to start playing around with, for the rest of the semester and moving forward to maybe the faculty show or maybe another show in the winter or something like that with this body of work, sort of constantly moving forward. I'd like to play around with digital environments more, so game engines, things that you can immerse yourself in and actually physically, well, not physically, but digitally move through inside of a computer or inside of the screen, and working on bringing in virtual reality for my students. So how do my mountains, how do my landscapes, how do these pieces that I've created work in a virtual world where they're sort of around you and you can manipulate that space? I think that's really what I want to set my goals on next. I think that type of work, more of this game work, more of the shared experiences where people can question, create dialogue, and really experience a digital environment, so then they can start drawing conclusions to the natural environment. I think that's where my work is headed. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for hearing me out, and I hope you guys have a wonderful summer.